to the Far Q, where we are the podcast that invites conversations about various access to equities within the context of Aotearoa. We invite guests to share their lived experience in an effort to identify common threads within support systems, social networks, and knowledge that uplifts the collective human experience. Season 1's question is, Kelsey?
What does equity and support look like for various communities coexisting within one society?
And today we have the the most precious flower to bloom from concrete. Who's not afraid to be, who doesn't even operate in closed-mindedness. Like that's where I'm going to go with that. But I also want to uplift the mana of your claim to yourself and your self-determination and your autonomy. Who are you? And can you finish the sentence? I am
a Ngaakauologist.
Everyone. Can you just please explain what that means for anyone who's new to the term Ngaakauologist?
Someone who uses their heart to facilitate their words, their lived experience and their practice and their service to others.
Beautiful.
That was pretty profound, eh?
Yeah, I'm just letting that simmer in.
Simmer. Like onions, it needs to simmer on the pan for me because I'm still trying to figure out that taste. And then that taste is just like, the taste is challenging me everywhere, if I'm being honest. But at the same time,
it's pretty deep.
But how do you operate knowing that that's who you are in a society that doesn't operate like that?
I think I used to work from a space of survival. I think when you know that you're born and bred, so I was born and bred in Tokoroa, 886, and you have a community of people that sound like you, look like you, feel like you, serve like you, talk like you, and then you move to a different place and space and you realise actually you're the only one that does that. It's easy to move into survival mode. So I think initially that's where most of my working career was based, because I had to sort of figure out how I could be without offending, being challenged in quite a negative way, and still do what I wanted to do to contribute to the world.
When you talk about offending,
yes,
is that like offending others for the way that you operate?
Yeah. I think one of my greatest learnings in life was being a part of a team that weren't quite ready for the way that I practiced. I was questioned about how I used to be with people, how I used to care for people, how I used to teach people and support people, because it was different from what was written in a policy or a book. And because my book was created through my community, through my Cook Island community, through my Māori community, that's affiliated to my yummy darling. He looks like the Rock, but he's got a puku.
Still yum.
I'm quite connected to both because they all function from the heart. And so when you're working alongside people who aren't used to that, who are used to engaging in only their minds, it can be really challenging. So the offence or the offending is really just about the political statement of me being present. And that's what makes it difficult is there's, one of the students yesterday that I have the privilege to engage in says to me, oh, Mama Rose, it's so good to see brown people in the space. And I was like, yep, it'll just get better from here. That's my dream anyway, is that there's more people in the spaces of isolation, especially when we're talking about diverse communities. it's not that diverse when I can't see my own people in the room. Yeah.
Or at the table of decisions too.
Yeah.
Come on, drop Winnie Labour now. drop her. We need to drop her right now.
Yeah, we do. Dr. Winnie Laban, she's a pretty profound Pasifika woman. She shared a gem with a cluster of people that came together. When was that? A couple of years ago, I think, and pretty much said if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. And that's always resonated with me. I've always as one. I think what that did was when you got 4 pretty voluptuous Pacifica people who have travelled in a very small car to Wellington to listen to those profound words, you can imagine what the conversation was like coming back to driving back from Wellington back to Kirikiriroa. We were amped. We were amped and on fire. It was just so good. Yeah. And she planted that seed, which was awesome. So thank you. Thank you, Mama Winnie. You rock.
I've never heard of it from that perspective before, but I guess like I've also what am I trying to say? I've not heard of it from that perspective before, but I also am aware that like if you're not at the table, how is your community supposed to be advocated for?
Yeah.
And diversity of thought doesn't advocate for that.
No, and like people who haven't had that lived experience can only advocate so far. So like if there was like something that I can resonate with is like when a lot of the heterosexual community are making decisions on the rainbow or the queer community on behalf of them, when they can have empathy for that community, but they can't really have perspective on it because they're not being through it.
Yeah. I think I'm of the mind that I believe the intent is genuine. I think anyone or everyone that's sitting at a table making decisions about a community have the right intent. What I'm really clear about is they're limited in their ability to make the right decisions because they haven't lived our experiences.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you hear all the catchphrases like culturally responsive practice or be culturally appropriate. And for me, it's really, if you haven't had our lived experiences, it's really hard for you to make decisions about what's going to work best because you have no idea. When you're trying to explain to someone how best to work alongside a Pacific or Māori person who's in need, I have to use examples like, have you ever been in a position where you've missed a meal? Have you ever been in a position where you haven't been able to top up your phone? Have you ever been in a position where your car has run out of gas and you've got 5 kids that you've committed to getting to school and they're going to have to walk 3 miles? And so asking those types of questions can help you sift out or help them assess whether they're the right people to be sitting at the table. And that's not to exit them out because you want to utilise that intent in the right way and to manifest it in the right way so that it's going to benefit our communities across the board.
Yeah.
The quote that's coming to mind is, "The road to hell is paved in good intentions."
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like that's literally the accurate outlook when we're looking at governance and operations. And it's like the governance have great intentions, and all of those intentions are literally it's like, to me, it's kind of productive and it invalidates our lived experience. And I'm like, if we looked at our lived experiences and the recipe that contributes to the lived experiences created by them and their systems, and then when we try to help ourselves within these systems, we can't because we're not at the governing board. So it's like, okay, so you cull us here And then when we're alive enough to like bring out our lives and support ourselves, and we have the intelligence to support ourselves from within, you still cull us from underneath and undertake like an undercurrent. You pull us back to where you've put us in society to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, intentions is great for someone else.
Yeah, and I think that's why when I talk about the lived experience, through that lived experience, you develop your own intelligence. You know, so when people use the word intelligence, you know, when I was growing up, intelligence meant you knew how to read a book, or you knew how to, you know, add numbers together, and you know, when we consider
the white man's tongue,
or hard out. So when you know that intelligence is really about our knowing, if we can manifest intelligence, and maximise on our intuition, we know that we could follow the right direction. You know, if our gut's sitting in the right way, so, you know, our kōpu's feeling good, our ngākau's feeling good, our manuko's feeling good, everything's aligned, then we can move forward and make the right decisions. But you're absolutely right about intention only goes so far. And I think we can sort of think about people in our lives that have had the right intent but haven't moved in any action for our community, but are still sitting at the table. So
gatekeepers.
Yeah. That's the nice word. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I feel like we don't even need to we don't have to ask about the different communities, but if you were so speaking from your lived experiences, can you name a few communities that you either used to belong to, still belong to, or still adding value to it some way, shape or form?
I think I've already talked about, so I was born and bred in Tokoroa, to a very strong Cook Island community. And they are still very strong today.
Is that still the 16th star for?
Always. That shouldn't even be questioned. I don't know what you were thinking. What were you thinking?
I don't even doubt.
But I think I had so many wonderful role models growing up in my Cook Island community, but a lot of them are passing away. You know, a lot of them, you know, you realise you come to the stage where you go, oh my God, where did everybody go? So I try to honour them by thinking about some of the attributes and the things that I've observed in them to make sure that I'm doing the same thing. The other community is my Ngāti Koroki Kahukura family that adopted me when I married my yummy darling. And I mean, Dale and I have only been married for a short while, but we share 4 children together. Karepe is our eldest daughter. I'm super proud of her. She's an amazing artist, performing artist, but she brings nothing but humility and humour to our whānau. Atawhai is our media star. If you've never heard of her, then you actually don't live in our community. So she's made some massive moves in her life. Te Aurere is my early retirement plan. She's our accountant, and Jimmy's my son who lives in Brisbane. And they've gifted Dale and I our 6 grandchildren, our 6 mokopuna. So, the community I live in is their world. You know, that's my preference. If I could do that as a full-time job, I would. It's just something about being with your mokos that makes life worth living. And it's really hard to talk to because until you're in it, my parents used to say that about my kids. You know, when I had my children, and they're like, oh, you just don't know what this is like. And you actually can't express it. There's just the space of being when you have a descendant sitting at your feet and you think, oh man, what am I gonna gift this child? You know, what am I gonna gift them so that they can move forward in life knowing that they're safe and and they're powerful and they're confident and they're loving and they can sit in humility and integrity and never have to learn the lessons that I have learned, and because you just want to protect them, and especially from the lollies that their grandfather gives them and stuff like that. So, but so that's the community I live in, is one of tupuna. As a grandparent, there's huge responsibilities. I can sort of sit back now and think, oh well, I tried my hardest as a parent. I'm pretty confident that, should I pass this earth, my girls would have something nice to say about me and my son would have something nice to say about me. But it's my grandchildren, it's what they say about me that matters. Yeah, that would make the difference about whether I've contributed to the world or not.
I feel like being in the grandparent space, is there any support for someone who's actually a new grandparent? Or is it just like, boom, you're a grandparent? Because I feel like you spoke on some really heavy topics around what does succession look like?
Yeah.
And then it's like, how did you learn succession? Was it through being a grandchild yourself?
No, I think what happens is when our grandson was born, so the kura tai whakaia is going to be, he starts college next year. So when he was born, and when you're holding this child in your hands, it's like, I don't know, you can call it vairua, you can call it whatever you like. It's just this overwhelming feeling of responsibility, and it's different from when you are a parent. It's different because you realise this is your legacy. And when I think about when he was born, quite naturally other grandparents in our community, in our families, gravitated to us. So I think what happens is you just become this network, this network of grandparents, because you get to share the similar stories and, this is what me and my moko does. It's a little bit of a competition actually now when I think about it. Me and my moko bake some cakes today, and I'm like, oh girl. And I think about my grandparents, because my two grandmothers especially were hugely influential on me. My mum's mum she was a craft whiz. She had this sewing room that was like Disneyland to me, because there were buttons and beads, and she used to make plaster moulds and chess sets and stuff like that. I used to love that space. And so I've created the same space in my office so that my mokos can come in and they go through my shelves and they're searching for stuff that they shouldn't be touching really, but just that space to explore so that they're near me when I'm doing my work, just like I used to do with my grandmother. And same with my nana. She was always out in the yard, with her flowers and her veggies. And so I've just planted my veggie garden. Well, actually, my yummy darling did, but I'm telling everyone I did. But I'll be able to have those experiences with my grandchildren. Yeah, but I don't think there's no book. There's no book that says how you're supposed to be a tupuna. It's like with a parent. Mind you, there are lots of how to be a parent books now, but not to be a grandparent. Yeah, I love it anyway. I love being Big Ma.
Because I guess to me, I'd like to think, or I'd like to imagine that because you learnt through being a grandchild how beautiful and uplifting your grandparents were to you, that's something that's already ingrained in your DNA to actually pass it on and succeed that on in some way, shape or form, but from your nuance of lived experience.
Yeah, and I think in some of the hardest times I think about their warmth, their warmth and their support. Like, I've had a pretty colourful history in life with one being unwell, so I've had cancer twice. And I remember the first time I was sick, my grandmother had Alzheimer's dementia. And it was so funny. She came up to me because by this stage, she had progressed that far in her illness that she thought I was my brother's girlfriend. Which was interesting in itself. But I remember she put my face in her hands and she just looked at me and she says, you're going to be okay. And she had no idea that I was unwell because at that point she was quite sick. And I just thought, and I held on to that during treatment and stuff, and I thought, that was really cool because I really believed that she knew I was unwell. She knew exactly who she was talking to. So I hold on to those experiences that I've had with my grandparents to get me through some challenging times. So that was a big one. And I was always really grateful for that experience, that interaction. Yeah. I'm pretty lucky, just saying.
Mm.
Is there anything that you learned from raising your children, any of those lessons that you've gifted to your children for when they're raising their own?
I'm not too sure. God, that's a curly question. I'd like to think I've taught them patience. Not so much with other people, but with themselves. I don't think I was that patient with myself as a parent. I think I had huge expectations of myself about what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to look in public with my children. It didn't help that they all look like licorice all sorts. And I remember one interaction with this person who approached me in the dairy, and I had this double pram thing, and I threw all my 4 kids into this pram because it was just easier to travel that way. And he says, "Oh, are these all your children?" And I said, "Yeah, they all got different, they're all very different, aren't they?" He says, sort of looked at me, and I thought. And, straight away it plants this doubt. It plants this doubt, just that one interaction. I thought, oh, what did I do wrong here? What's wrong with my kids? And I thought, I washed their face. And I said, nobody's got a runny nose. So it's you become quite sensitive to your environment as a parent. So I'd like to think that I have taught them to understand to be patient with themselves. I think it's so easy to lose yourself in doubt as a parent if you're not patient with yourself. That's the only thing I can think of right now. I'm sure there's a massive list. I'm sure they could provide a massive list of things that I'd need to improve on.
Now, you spoke about cancer, beating it twice.
Yeah.
Tell us about that journey, if you like, and and what support was there at the beginning of that journey, because I feel like the person that I see now and the person that I've met was after that journey, and I'm so thankful that you went through that journey. But that's my perspective. From you, I'd love to hear about the starting of that journey.
What's to tell? How that journey started was I was sitting in the kohanga reo and Jimmy, my son, was sitting on my lap, and they used to have a doctor visit the kohanga. And at the time my hair was really long, so I used to sit on my hair. And it was out that day, and I remember the doctor just looked at me. She goes, "Oh my God, have you seen your neck? Well, you're a mother of 4. You don't look in the mirror." So I was like, no. So she took me to the mirror, and it was like swollen. That's the best way to describe it. And I was like, and then I thought, oh, that doesn't look right. And 2 days later, I was in surgery. And so everything sort of progressed really quickly. And Dale and I didn't really have an opportunity to process. We hadn't told anybody. Treatment didn't go that well in way of my body changing, being sore. I think people think that, in my experience, I think people think that once you've had an operation or you've had treatment that it's okay, but it's actually after, because your body's still in trauma. And I really believe that my body's still paying for it. You know, because, you know, this body used to be an athlete.
Still is.
Yeah, yes it is.
I just heard of the term creative athlete or creative fitness.
And I think too that people from my past and my community, when they see me, because, you know, I'm quite voluptuous and gorgeous that way, are quite surprised, especially when they knew me as an athlete, because I used to do a lot of track meets and stuff, and I've got a few awards that are still outstanding in the Waikato. And you know, I don't want to have to explain to them, oh well, you know, my hormones don't roll like everybody else's, and you know, I don't want to have to blurb out to them that I've had cancer, because people move really quickly from empathy to sympathy, and then you're like, I don't want to live the victim space. So you sort of just, you know, crack a joke and just carry on. But I guess that just comes with human nature and people making judgments about not understanding the path that we've walked, which is I'm grateful for, because it's, in my experience, it's made me think about other people's journeys. So when I'm talking to somebody new, I never make assumptions about what their journey is, which is probably why I'm so nosy and I like to ask them. So that I can work with that and they can work with me and we can connect on a different level. But I think the experience for me in being sick twice took me on a journey around what did I do wrong. Yeah, so that was the first one. The first time I was sick was, what did I do wrong, universe? What did I do wrong? That I haven't done right, that I've got to learn. What lesson do I have to learn through this process? And because those people who are familiar with the thyroid gland, it controls all your cells in your body. I don't have one anymore. And I sort of had to go deep within myself and reflect, and I thought, well, it's related to the throat and the place where your voice is processed. And I thought, okay, I need to find my voice. And so when I set on the journey of healing to find my voice, it was a pretty traumatic one. You know, there was one stage there. I decided to parent on my own, to create space. There were a few people that I thought were really good supports for me that I discovered they weren't. So they got shifted to the curb. So there was a massive transformation that occurs when you're exploring who you are and seizing the opportunity to share your voice. And I remember one of my nephews asked me in the weekend, we had an unveiling, and he says to me, oh, Auntie, how do you know what your voice is? And I cracked up laughing and I went, well, it depends if you're singing soprano, boy, or alto, you know, because I was thinking, I said, only you can determine what your voice is, you know, and I relate my voice to my purpose, and my purpose is around, you know, disrupting the cultural fabric as it lays today, to cater to our Pacifica communities, which isn't an easy position to be in, but I love it. I love it. I think my lived experiences have prepared me for that, whether it be being sick or having to lose my superheroes in my life to remind me, oh, yep, okay, I need to tap into this strength. And yeah, so yeah, I'm grateful for the experience. I think it's promoted gratitude in my life. It's nothing like worrying about dying to make you really appreciate what you have. And so I'm pretty grateful to get up in the morning and breathe. I'm sure there's a few other people out there that are too.
And
So-
I think for you around life is so short, like what the average age is of life expectancy is around 70 to 80 between males and females.
Yeah.
But that's 70 to 80 years in relation to like 3,000 years of Earth, you know,
Yeah.
like, so in my head, when I think of like in relativity, I'm like, that's such a small time. And it's like, the real challenge is how do we, like, you know, leave a legacy. So your legacy could be through your mokopuna, or your legacy could actually be intellectual property or a book of sorts or something like that. And I think for me, we're not focused, like society, like what I'm really hearing is society's not focusing on the longevity of each individual experience. We're focusing on what matters for the majority.
Right now too.
Yeah. And that time space is like, we're only caring about outcomes to fit the now. And I'm like, that's detrimental to the longevity of our people's issues and our people's plight and our people's journey, because we're so focused on the now. And like for
like
me,
the short-term benefits rather than like making sure that our children are gonna, and their children are gonna have a safe space to live.
But that's our thoughts in the now. Did you have similar whakaaro as you were growing up in this intellectual space or in the academy? Because I don't want to be egotistic about it and say that, oh, this is a revolutionary thought.
Oh,
like
well,
you
we
probably
don't want to be egotistical now. We don't want to be sitting in that space. It's funny you bring it up, because I think when you use that description of in the now, I think about being present. So so any interaction that I'm having with a person or a place or a space has to have some sort of lesson or meaning attached. And I know that sounds real wee wow,
No,
but that's just how I roll. So even in this space now, sitting with Whākiu, it's like, okay, what's the intention here? And it won't come until I go away and reflect. But it's just knowing that I'm aligned, it's making sure my mind and my heart and my belly are aligned, and that I'm being truthful, speaking my truth, because I can only speak my truth. I can't speak for the collective. I can only speak for my truth and my intentions around wanting to contribute to the world and making a difference. I do think that there is a balance around being present currently, but still having an eye on the future. I think one of the privileges I have is working alongside some of our Ngāti Koroki family with the sustainability projects. You know, we've just moved into the Papakoinga. We've built 9 homes. The places just feel really blessed, and as a extended family, we're tight. But we're all working together. We've got a mara kai happening. We'll have a mara rongoa, medicinal garden, all those sorts of things that will cover us long term. So even though in the now is actually just sitting in my lounge and looking up at Maunga Tautari, the benefit of being in the now is overseeing the work that's being done by the people that are working on the whenua at the time. And so I think there's a little bit of a balance. I'm not too sure what the recipe is. You can only just walk your own truth and hope that your contribution is meeting the needs of everybody. And even if it doesn't, I'm thinking sometimes just meeting the needs of yourself is what's required.
100%. And do you think that there's some support lacking in that space, or do you reckon that support's already there and we need to seek out that support?
Oh no, I don't think the support's there. I think, you know, when I've got a really cool brother, Ricky Solomon, who's doing a lot of work in the suicide prevention space, utilising matariki to support our young people, you know, young people who in the now think that the option is suicide. So I don't think, and I'm not saying I can't make any comments around because I have been in dark places. I suppose that could be clinically diagnosed as depression in my lowest spaces, where I felt like I haven't wanted to be in this world, but for some reason, whatever that reason is, I opted to stick around. But I don't think there is enough supports out there to help us guide and facilitate the now. I don't think there is. I think we've got heaps of evidence that say that we don't. You know, even dealing with health issues in the community, not just mental health. I'm talking about physical health. You know, yous making me walk down to BB today was a great thing. You know, we don't have that facilitated support for everybody. So there's huge areas in the now that need to be supported. I see that every day with people who are struggling to read, you know, at the age of 32, because they haven't had anyone be present for them in the now when they were younger. So try and rectify that by being present.
I like it because you're talking about coming at it from all angles as opposed to just thinking about the future only or thinking about the now only.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be work on all levels.
Yeah. I think it needs to be multi-layered. You know, we wouldn't be holistic beings if we weren't thinking about things being multi-layered, you know. I don't know, what's a cake that's multi-layered, you know, like a cake.
Like a trifle.
Like a trifle. Yeah, well, could be a trifle, like a trifle.
Trifle's gross.
It's not
What?
It's not gluten-free.
I don't like trifle. I think it's disgusting. Too many textures. Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
So gross.
Wait, trifle
like
with
moist
peanuts.
and then there's like-
Trifle
Why
with
would
peanuts
you-
is a no.
Ugh.
Who does peanuts?
Um,
Who does that?
Oh, Lucille, that's
you
all.
know who.
Really?
Them.
Wow. It's so sad.
The first time I saw peanuts inside my trifle, I honestly wanted to cry. Like, I'm like, this is Christmas and this is probably the only.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
I feel for you. The trauma is real.
Still experiencing it.
Trifle trauma.
Trifle trauma.
The TT.
Oh. This it's you two and this because it's like we turn everything that's serious into a joke.
It gets
Trifle
too
trauma.
heavy.
True
It's
that.
that in the now thing though. I think it gets too heavy sometimes. I think sometimes we get our conversations go to a space where it's just like, oh my God, that feels really heavy.
You need to take a breath kind of thing.
Yeah. Need to take a breath, crack a joke about peanuts and we all goods.
Peanuts, nuts.
I think that multi-layered, like, korero that you were just, like, having also lends itself to having to navigate different spaces and places as one person. Like, I've witnessed Joseph have to navigate being Pacifica but also being a gay male out in the world, and in some spaces it's easier and in other spaces it's not at all. And supporting Joseph to have the autonomy to decide when obviously he can't
It's a switch.
pretend to be like not Pacifica because he's very visually Pacifica. But like,
Yeah, I'm Pacifica passing. I'm Samoan passing. You know, like they say that there's like these white passing like islanders. I'm Samoan passing. Like everyone always mistakes me for a Samoan, which I actually don't mind because I do have a little bit of Samoan in me somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like my whakaaro around. If you mistake me for any motu on the moana, I don't give a rat's ass. But if you mistake me for something outside of the moana, I'm like, that's when I'm like, no, sorry, my lineage and this this DNA is rooted in the moana. So I'm like, do not mistake me for anywhere else.
Yeah, but I can relate to that because a lot of my work-related tasks were around facilitating te reo and tikanga modules and experiences on the marae, and people made the assumption I was Māori, and I am. I'm Cook Island Maori. So, and then when you try to, when they're, which iwi are you from? And I'm going, Ngati Putukati, Te Maruatoi, and Pamati, and they're like, and they're going, is that in Gisborne? And so you're left questioning about whether you're supposed to validate to them or help them understand. And I suppose for me it's around, what investment in this relationship do I want to have? What investment do I want to make in this interaction? Because, I think about my relationship with Joe, and I immediately make the assumption that he will back me. I need you to do this for me. Can you do this for me? But that's only because I know that we have a reciprocity that's, set in iron ore. It's not steel, it's more than that. It's an iron ore, it's set in the whenua, it's set in the inua, it's deeper than the surface relationships that I might have with people in my day-to-day life, or the guy at the BP, or the, mind you, I'm quite nice to the people at the BP when they make my coffee. So, I think it's determined by what sort of connection do I want to make with this person? Do I want to open myself up to them and say, hey, look, actually, Cook Island Maori would refer to me being connected to the Cook Islands, and have a deep and meaningful. But that's a choice thing. And sometimes I think it gets hoha.
Yeah.
It gets tiring. It gets tiring having to, so I think about
battle fatigue.
Yeah, mate. Don't go there with the racial battle fatigue.
Yeah, I knew it.
I just start a whole new.
we need another hour.
Do another session around. For those of you who don't know what racial battle fatigue, Google it. But yeah, it's tiring. Yeah. It's tiring because alongside of people making assumptions about your identity, they're making assumptions about your worth and your value.
And see, that's exactly my problem when I see other people seeing us relate. Because when we relate at a level that it's so playful, it's so chill and calm, and it's so fluid. But they don't understand the great depths of work that has to be done from the underneath to build that trust and that love and that connection. Yeah. And for us, I think because we're so used to wanting and seeking and yearning for that type of connection, that it's like, I guess you can see it from an outside as it's easy to build that trust. And I'm like, it takes a lot of hard work to actually understand and relate to somebody at that level of depth. Yeah. And then for people who, like, I think what I get annoyed about is that people see us being so, nonchalant and cavalier with each other, that they assume that they can be with us like that as well. So whenever people come through saying, hey girl, to me, knowing full well that I'm flamboyant, I'm like, firstly, we do not fuck with each other like that, so fuck you. And secondly, you have not built that whakawhanaungatanga continuously, not one time, continuously with me. And it's that reciprocity that you said. And I think for me, I just wanted to highlight that specifically because it is a lot of hard work to try and connect with somebody. And you have to have the ears, the time, the effort, the energy. And if you haven't got all of those things, it just seems like an easy relationship. Like, oh, Joe's an easygoing guy. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking easygoing guy. I've got a lot of experiences to me and I choose who I share that with.
That's right. And because the facade or the myth is, Rose loves everybody. And so when you make the statement,
heard people say that.
I have actually,
all over.
And it's so funny because I go, when I was in, I think there might have been 30 people in the space. And the statement was like, oh, Rose just loves everyone because we were welcoming a new person into our space. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm extremely selective. And then there's this nervous giggle because people think I'm joking.
Mm.
And then when I look, I'm like, and I turn to my own peeps and I go, I'm not joking. And then we laugh. And they don't realise we're laughing at the fact that they're laughing, but not realising that I'm laughing because it's so. I'm being honest. I'm being honest because I respect people, and I will work my heart and my soul and my hands to make sure that I respect people. But I don't love easily. I've been damaged. I've opened my heart on many occasions where people have, grabbed it out of my chest and chewed it up and spat it out. And that's and in the context of service, that may be that I've put a whole lot of effort into something to work really hard to serve others and it's just been dismissed. Or
leeches, come on, you need to go there.
Yeah, there's massive leeches. Roaches, leeches, you name it, they're there. But I think I try not to spend too much energy on focusing on the insects. Yeah, I try not to do that.
I see where you go from there. The insignificance of them.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Did you see that? Right, just like that. That's what connection does. Creates. Just saying.
I think that experience can be transferred into lots of different kinds of spaces and places too. Like I know that there is a activist writer person named Lena Dunham, and she had once said that she wished that she had had an abortion so that she could speak on this topic and advocate for that community. And I was like,
wow. Did she really say that?
That's really damaging whakaaro to have and to put out into the world. Just because you want to be able to relate to that community. You can advocate for them and you can be empathetic for them, but if that's not a space or place that, like, I guess it depends on the situation, but you've been privileged to be part of or unprivileged to be part of, it's going to be really, really damaging.
I suppose those types of, and I call that a gift to the world, when somebody shares their voice and their truth, it allows us to sort of reflect and position where we see ourselves in the world. So I'm grateful for her whakaaro, because the irony is I sat with someone today who works so hard to conceive, so when you think about the fact that someone wants to go through a process of abortion to have the experience so she can sit and advocate, well, sit with someone that's had to go through a process to try and conceive, because it wasn't a pleasant journey that was shared with me today. And I sat there in my humility and because I didn't want to move to a space of guilt. It's not my fault I'm fertile. I was fertile and I was able to have children, and but it was just really awesome to celebrate this conception of this child. But I guess that's the power of voice, eh? That's the power of voices, is people are going to share their opinions, and that's going to gift us an opportunity to reflect and position ourselves in the world about what it is that we like and what we don't like, how we will be, what we will do. Wow, that's out of it, whakaaro.
I feel like I almost have to say my saying now. I'm like, my lived experience is not a case study that you can fucking like say sorry about. Like, that's so messed up to me. I'm like, I don't even know how to say it, like to speak to that, because I'm like that on all levels, and especially like that level. Oh, why would you go there?
I know, when I heard it, because I
not
really
connection.
respect her as a writer, and I've found a lot of like I really enjoyed a couple of her books and stuff. And then when I heard that, I was like, oh, like it can just be one thing that completely puts you off someone.
But then again, on the flip side to that, I think support actually looks as well, for me anyways, is we should not get like, because I feel like for me, so I'm projecting right now, but I have a massive tendency to hold that person's in time, that person's energy that they gave to me in that time. So it could have been last week or last year where they really tainted like the essence of, like I saw them in a different light. And when I see them in a different light, it's like, I don't know how else to see you in a better light, because I'm like, you showed me your true essence for free, and I'm like, you didn't expect the repercussions for me to be like, I don't want to talk to, or I don't want to connect with you again, and then for them to keep on coming back, and I'm like, how do I support you in that?
To be like, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
But isn't the idea though that would just mark a part of her learning journey? That's part of her learning journey. So because you've read some of her other things and you know you connected with it, and then she's come to this space, it would indicate that she's moved to this disruption space and she just hasn't been able to navigate it properly. Or maybe she has, because it's prompted a more powerful thinking process, a reflection process with you. Because I think about my growth alongside Joe, and he's not the same person I met a few years ago.
Thank God.
I know.
Thank goodness, right?
I know, I'm so grateful. So grateful. But I think about, the reality is because you've had more lived experience, more opportunities to be gifted both written literature, oral literature, the experience and environment with people. I don't think we stagnate. I wouldn't hang with anyone that was singing the same song, 10 years later, flick you to the curb, because that just indicates that they haven't grown,
I'm glad we've both lasted this long.
Yeah.
Well, you've been in it longer than me, so your resilience is amazing.
True.
Yeah.
You did hold. Well, I thought we were talking about Rose, but I guess we're talking about me. I'm like, you've known Rose for a long time, so
No, we're talking about you.
Oh yeah, I am sexy, aren't I?
Okay, moving on.
All right, so tell us, in your opinion, what are topics in the whākau that you would like to be seen more openly talked about?
Oh,
So is there any topics, so it could be from anywhere of your lived experience, but what are topics that you feel like are taboo, or like people have mamais that are not actually we're not talking about it, but we really need to start addressing these topics? So the whole point of the whākau is on this.
Isn't that interesting? So in my meditation this morning, hope would be a concept or an idea that could be discussed. I think it's sort of got a little bit, I don't want to say exhausted or over embellished during the COVID, the lockdown thing, because everyone was trying to be really positive and support everyone with a grieving process through the lockdown period, and we're still feeling the impact of that. But the conversation was prompted by 5 young men, 5 Maori young men actually, that Sister Waimahi and I had engaged in, and they were living on the street. And after our interaction with them, my hope was that we'd planted some sort of hope with them around ongoing support and opportunity. So I think hope's one. I think that'd be awesome. I don't think it's controversial. I just think it's something to consider. The other one would be joy. I think we like to go to the deficit kaupapa. Let's look at equity. No, let's look at joy. Let's look at joy and what joy looks like. It's another one. No, those are the only 2 I can think of right now.
I really appreciate that, because you're the first person who's actually brought things that are not looked at from a negative connotation, or you've literally brought up things that actually have been in the whākau. Like they've been in the whākau for a while.
Yeah, they have.
And we've only been using and abusing that in a surface level, because we don't, like, if I'm being honest, I hear hope and it's only coming from a religious perspective.
Oh, wow.
And if I hear joy, I'm only hearing that from like toxic positivity. It's not coming from like a place of being like, joy is like what I used to feel as a child. Hope is what I was taught as a child.
Wow. Yeah, because, you know, as a Ngaakauologist, we practice from a space of sensory pedagogy, right? And so the pedagogy is really how you do things. So to be sensory means that joy isn't just something you hear, it's something you feel, it's something you see. So when you think about all the senses, joy would need to be a holistic thing, you know, not just what's written in the book or the proverb that you get out of Google because you need some sort of affirmation to help you get through the day. And I know people do that. I know people do that. And it works for some people. I've been there. I've been there. I'll go to my phone and I'll Google and I'll go, oh, affirmation for the day. Joy. Yeah, what that look like. So, you know, I think that's why, and I know if I'm really honest, because I know that I'm in a position of grief currently because we've had some massive losses on both sides of our family. Joy is one of the aspects for me that sits in that grieving process, because when you're with family, and I don't know what it's like in your fella's family, but there's always, alongside of the tears, there's just as much laughter and joy.
Beautiful.
So joy's a key focus for me at the moment. Like sitting here with you two, feeling the joy.
Oh my gosh. Oh wait, the only song in my heart in my head right now. Give me joy in my heart, give me blessings. Raised Catholic. Shout out to all the Catholic listeners out there.
I'm sorry, I don't know that song.
Oh, joy to the world.
I know that one. Joy to the world.
Hey. All the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Hey.
Joy
to you and me. Me.
Oh, now it's got a rap.
Oh.
That's a new version.
That's a rap. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. So last question before we wrap up. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Oh, cripes. What brings me joy? There's so many things that bring me joy. Home brings me joy. So home, you know that saying, home is where the heart is? So home for me is on the inua of Achitaki. Home for me is in the passenger side of my yummy darling's truck when we're cruising around. Home for me is sitting at the dinner table with my mokos while they're eating spaghetti, trying to mess up my new carpet. Home for me is watching my children do some amazing things in their community that just make me proud. Joy for me is watching my mum and my mother-in-law just beam at their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. That brings me a lot of joy. And joy for me is breathing.
All right. And our last activity, because it's in my head and I feel like I'm going there with my spontaneity.
No, here we
All right.
go.
So one word. So the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Love is?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Empathy is?
Peace.
Vulnerability is?
Wild.
Restoration is?
Restoration. Transformation.
Beauty is.
Me. Well, I'm beautiful.
Sexy is.
Me.
Nature is.
A tapestry of relations.
Moana.
Oh, is that one word?
No,
I'll
that
just
is.
add that. I'll add that
Oh my
together.
God, yeah. Supercalifragilistic. Moana is.
Depth.
Ancestors are.
Present.
Past is.
Present.
Present is.
Present.
Future is.
Present.
I knew you were gonna go there, and I'm like this. We going this. I'm like, but yes, thank you so much for sharing your talanoa and your space with us. And we also would like to invite you to, if you got any things that you want to plug in, or how do people reach out to you if they connect with your story and they want to, connect with you outside of the podcast?
They can contact FAQ.
Yep.
They can contact FAQ if they want to reach out.
Oh, we'll tell you our emails on and as well as our podcast is on Instagram. So that's FAQ Podcast on Instagram, everybody, as well as Facebook. We've got a Facebook page as well. I keep on forgetting that. And yes, so join us for our intro, our outro. Sorry. The fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Fuck you. The fuck you.
Fuck you.
Thank you.
See you later.